Hello and welcome to Off with Their Headlines. It's me, Meredith Constant, and Amanda Matta, and we have our first ever guest host today. Her name, you've definitely seen her. You've definitely seen her upside down sunglasses. Her name is Reb Masel. Reb is a practicing attorney in California, host of the Rebuttal podcast, author of her forthcoming book, The Book They Throw at You, a sarcastic lawyer's guide to the unholy chaos of our legal system. God, no, not actual legal advice. And comedy, lifestyle, and legal content creator on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Her content aims to inspire young people, lawyers, and aspiring professionals of all ages around the world by proving you can be a successful young lawyer without losing your sense of humor, quick wit, passion, and a killer cat eye. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. So elated to be here.
We almost forgot to start the recording. We were just having so much fun.
I know, that's the problem. We just need to have a reality show, just follow us around and record our convos.
Don't tempt Meredith with a good one.
Why would you do that to me? I am game for anything. Okay, I have to know, you're in California practicing. Where are you originally from?
Oh my gosh, so many different places, which sounds like such a cop-out, but I moved around a lot as a kid, but for people would be surprised. For the longest consecutive period of my life, I lived in a very small farm town in Illinois, which is
Didn't
funny.
see that coming.
I used to have a Midwestern accent until it got bullied out of me very promptly when I moved to California when I was 16. So people, in my comments will of course revert to the Valley Girl accent, and I'm like, yes, I am assimilating, like chameleon that I am. Hell yeah. Is that what I sound like? Perfect. Well, I'm not from there. I was born in Georgia, Atlanta. So there you go.
You just have hard Northeast energy.
I think honestly, moving around so much as a kid, I wouldn't have changed it for the world because it gives you so many other perspectives that, yeah, you might not agree with, but for sure being someone who's absolutely developed their political and social views on the world and life and everything, it always comes from someone. When I talk to other people, on the other side or whatever, I'm like, look, I've lived in towns where it was primarily blue collar workers, where it was primarily people who went straight from high school to the military. There's nothing wrong with those paths of life, but the people that you think are on your side are not, so I appreciate, and it also makes you really bitchy for sure. I'm like, I don't have time. Listen, I got enough problems. I don't have time to talk to y'all. I'm not offended by anything you guys say. Heard worse things from meaner, better people.
Good advice.
What we're picking up on. It's like a New York attitude, I think.
It is. And I'm from New Jersey originally, and Boston. So the fact that I don't have a more obnoxious accent is actually very impressive.
Yours is a very great media. I mean, listen, it's giving the modern day version of what used to be the transatlantic, accent in the 40s and stuff.
My gosh, goals.
Yeah, that's what your voice is to me. I would love to hear it in my Alexa.
So I know you from TikTok and I listened to the podcast. Love it. But if I remember correctly, you went viral while you were an actively practicing attorney. So what was that like? Walk us through that journey. Because I was a STEM educator, which vastly different from being a public facing commentator on social media. So what was that like for you?
It was interesting because I didn't have TikTok in law school, really. I really was just opening up the TikToks that my little sister would send me. She's 6 years younger than me, so she keeps me young, and when her very much Gen Z age group were the pioneer. The only reason why I had the app, because no one really my age at that time had the app, I was about 25, 26 when I graduated law school, was because I wanted to, open up her TikToks, and she was working me. She was running the ship like the Navy. I was doing 8 counts in our parents' upstairs, spare bedroom during COVID, right?
She's like, you better jazz square.
She's like, no, it's 5, 6, 7, 8. And I was like, studying for the bar and trying to have my sister think I'm cool, which is all older sisters typically want. Yeah,
yep, relatable.
So, I was posting a few TikToks here and there just as a creative outlet, and then took the bar, started working pretty much immediately, practicing full time. And then, I posted a video a few months after that, a few months into it. And, it went viral. And you never think oh, this will be my career. I was like, yeah, I didn't spend all that time in law school to be doing the online shit, that's for sure. But you always think it's just oh, you're haha, 15 minutes. One time I had a video go viral, story. And so as it continued and as I kept posting and my following got bigger, I just thought to myself, hey, this is cool. This is great. But if I had to delete it one day, I really, it would be fine. I wouldn't care. But then, and I've said this before, it very much became obvious to me that it became something bigger than me with how much people have reached out, thousands upon thousands of people and lawyers and judges and people from all over different careers have
judges
supported.
Is crazy, honestly.
Yeah, they're the ones sending me transcripts half the time, and some of them I'm like, I can't.
Love that.
I'm like, thank you so much, Judge Warren. So this has like very personal identifying information in it that I can't. Like certain transcripts, right? Like, of course I'm changing certain names. Of course I'm changing certain facts. Like, it's not because I'm lying. It's because I got an A in ethics, babes. Like, I know how this works. Like, I'm not gonna, get in trouble on that front. And they're like, why use it? I'm like, okay, so I'm not, oh my God. Yeah, you'd be shocked. I mean, the most, like literally like the, like old white men judges in a random district in Texas.
Stunning.
Reaching out to me and being like, huge fan, love your stuff, keep staying on there. I remember when women weren't allowed to wear pants in court, and it wasn't that long ago, right? And they're like, you need to keep doing what you're doing. This is awesome. And so yes, it's been weird because it definitely is like a different part of my life, my professional life and social media and podcast and book side of things. But I've really loved it that way because I feel like I really just wanted to keep it separate and just to, be the lawyer that I can be in my own life. And then hopefully, I become good at one and it makes me better at the other.
I love the idea that there's a bunch of judges like all over the United States and a case comes in and they're like, oh, this shit is good. I'm sending this to Reb. I love that.
I mean, and it's funny because it's so of course, right? They're probably children or grandchildren or office staff or, like their clerks or their court reporters are sending them the videos or showing them to them like on their phones. And so it's obvious, right? Where they kind of have initially gotten the stuff. And to see them just, like be heckling their like court staff, like, hey, can you DM Reb Masel really quick and tell her that we're proud of her? Send her a selfie. And it's like the cutest selfie photo of the court staff and then judge, what like in this case, it was an older woman judge in her robe. They're like just so excited. And I'm like, I love you all so much. I'm so happy this brought us together.
I have so much more faith in our courts now that I've heard about this. You are the great unifier.
Seriously.
You're bringing everyone together. Old white men in Texas. You're Reb for president. I'm calling it now.
It's a community thing, honestly.
Exactly. I'm simply the messenger, truly, because everyone who's been in this field, whether it be, the paralegals, the court staff, people who have maybe served on jury duty or been witnesses or, God forbid, been defendants, attorneys, everyone, we've all known that it's this fucking crazy and chaotic and insane and that it's always been funny. Like the legal humor didn't just start up just because I started putting the spotlight on it. It's very much one of those things where you get into this kind of, exclusive, very, very what seemingly is like a very buttoned up club. And yes, it is because it's more of a traditional, very rarely do you see a lot of professions these days where it's like full suit and tie every day in the courtroom, if that's the requirement, speaking in this language and your honor and there's decorum and there's, like it's pretty much the exact equivalent of knowing what fork to use for your salad.
In the UK, they still have to wear those stupid wigs. Yeah.
Oh my God. And like not even a lace front. It's just like a shake and go, plop it on. And like listen, if I were in the UK and I was a solicitor, okay, barrister, whatever, whichever one it was, like I feel like I'm fringing out. I'd be, buffing out that edge a little bit. I don't know.
I think you could start like a whole cottage industry of making those more appealing.
Yeah, maybe like a cute little like streak on the under, like a hidden like little like purple like cute little streak on the underside
flair.
that doesn't
get that Etsy shop started.
Listen, that's my plan Z. I got a lot of plans. Okay,
that's your next passive income stream.
Right.
Exactly. But yeah, no, like once you get into this exclusive club, you look around and realize, oh, it's a shit show. Like, oh, this is a clown shoe kind of situation. I am simply one of the people, you know what I mean? Like up here doing an act myself. And we're keeping it together though, man. We're fighting the good fight, even if it's really funny and ridiculous sometimes.
Man, I love that.
What do you say to that, honestly?
I love it. I mean, yeah, like she said it all. Amanda, do you want to introduce Reb to bearing the lead?
Yeah. This is one of our content buckets that we do where We look at something absolutely crazy to come out of the British media, and we either just make fun of it or we actually look at the media moves going into the story.
Depends.
So we wanted to talk about one with you today from The Sun. Feel free to laugh. Trump card. The real reason Donald Trump will never boot Harry and, quote, terrible Meghan out of U.S. And it's all because of King Charles. So,
Of course it is.
So many things have,
A
so
lot
many
going
wrong things have to be true in order for
A
that
lot
statement to
going
make
on.
a shred of sense. Yeah, listen.
Yep. And it's predicated on Donald Trump quipping that he won't deport Prince Harry from the U.S. because the former royal has, quote, got enough problems with his terrible wife. And I feel like that behind the scenes before he said it on Truth Social or whatever was supposed to be with his bitch wife, something. I already feel like we're getting a layer of filter there. But apparently The Sun can reveal that the real reason Trump will never force the Sussexes out of the country is thanks to King Charles and his warm relationship with Donald Trump, as well as Trump's respect for the royal family. So how have you heard this story about Prince Harry and his visa and the Heritage Foundation trying to deport him?
A little bit of all the headlines that have come up with the word Trump in it, that has been the last thing on, you know what I mean? It's very much okay. So that, yeah.
Your facial reaction, which you can see if you watch on Patreon or 1 week later on YouTube. I wish I could just have acted out, spoken what your face was doing during reading that. And it really made me realize wow, this stuff is ridiculous. And we read it a ton. But the thing is too, as a lawyer, not that you've worked with Harry and Meghan or anything like that. This is not legal advice. But
thank you.
Can he just kick Harry and Meghan out of the country? Is that a thing?
I mean,
can a president just...
So the Heritage Foundation,
citizen,
their reasoning is that they suspect Harry lied on his visa application because he admitted to using illegal drugs, including cocaine, cannabis, and psychedelic mushrooms in Spare. So the Heritage Foundation has subpoenaed or petitioned, one or the other, to release Harry's immigration records, including his visa application. In September, a judge denied that request, saying that he has an expectation of privacy. But the question remains, right? And now the question is, will Trump reverse that decision or pressure for that decision to be reversed?
There's so many moving parts that the legal answer, honest to God, that I can provide is the one that it assumes we still have a system that we're following, right? In theory, right? Everyone will always ask me exactly the same thing of well, can Trump do this? I'm the legal answer is no, but the coup d'etat answer, you know what I mean? I'm everything with respect to the law is always no, someone can't, whether it be a judge or a president or whatever, they can't do that. If they tried to do it or did it right, they sent people to Prince Harry's, or they worst case, cartoonish Looney Tunes example of sending agents, right? Throwing him on a plane and deporting him forcibly. The way that is then saying, yeah, you can't do that is through the courts, right? Everything proven that you can't, hey, you can't do is then if Prince Harry would, file a suit or file a claim, and then an immigration court or a civil court, regardless of which route he goes, would say, yeah, so the president does not have the authority to do that in this situation, or they would say, they had no basis and therefore, da-da-da. So, right, in theory, a president has no power to overturn a judge's order, right? In that sense, they have no power to hear a judge's order and go, no, you know what I mean?
Not if JD Vance has anything to say about it.
Right. Right. This is just a bit, that's the thing too, is I think that one, I guess, comfort idea or what we can go home with is anyone can say whatever they want, right? That's just how it is. Anyone in power these days, especially, can say whatever the fuck they want to say. Can we cuss on here? I'm sorry.
Yes,
sure.
Can
Say whatever the fuck they want to say, right? And say, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. The judicial branch, right? The legal side of things, the attorneys that this will all, be going through, and et cetera, et cetera. We are the ones who go, okay, well, good luck, right? Good luck. It's going to take a long time and you can't do that. And this is the process and da-da-da. But in the immediate, right, aftermath of JD Vance, for example, saying a bunch of bullshit, it's hard to kind of tell people, no, they can't, because in theory they could. But in terms of what's helping people, I guess people, at least in the legal field, feel a little bit better is there are always channels that you literally have to go to, right? And people who are boots on the ground challenging executive orders, challenging all of these extraneous actions and decisions, and going before judges that have every right to be there and are indeed qualified to do their jobs. And it is all inherently not political. Like, applying the law as it's written is not political. Knowing that the judicial branch has certain powers that are separate from the executive is something that you can't really question. What happens in the worst case scenarios, completely unrelated to the Trump administration, but in terms of like hostile takeovers of governments, right, is those things go crumbling down. And so of course people respond and say, well, what if they just deleted every single judge ever? Well, right, that would be right. Then we can come back. Then we could come back to this drawing board. But like, for right fucking now, there's no way that Trump would be involved specifically or personally with Prince Harry being deported. And the entire process that would be happening is all in relation to immigration status and paperwork and green cards and a million different things. And immigration attorneys who I respect and admire so much, that if the ones on the defense side, of course, know how complicated and complex our immigration system is. And, when people say things to people like, oh, we'll just go through the do it legally. I'm like, they are. Like, y'all have not a single clue in the goddamn world how broken our immigration system is. It is way more complex than simply a president, right, saying, oh, we want to deport him. And also, like, if we are going to be deporting Prince Harry on just because the president says, oh, I got in a tiff. Let's say he got in a tiff with King Charles, right? He's like, oh, I decided I don't really like them anymore, so I'm going to deport his son. Then let's start deporting some Elons. Because last I checked, he was born in South Africa, babes. Apartheid South Africa. Let's start going down the list. Do you know what I mean? Like if that's let's apply this a little bit more equally then.
One person said he smoked a doobie in his memoir. The other one is a foreign adversary wreaking havoc on the federal government. It feels a little different. I really hope that in 6 months we don't return to this podcast in the 51st state of Canada.
And I'm in a bunker,
discussing how the sun was right, and Prince Harry is currently in Greenland, owned by America.
Right.
God,
I'm red, white, and blue land first, Meredith, if we get our way. But no, the Sun understands that Harry will not be deported under Trump because Trump said directly, I'll leave him alone, because he thinks that Prince Harry going back to the UK would cause a bigger headache for Charles than having him here in the US doing whatever he's doing.
See, the legal equivalent of this to me, like, this is what he always does. Like, Trump is, I don't really want to say he's good at anything, but one thing that he does that is very convincing to people who don't know anything or about how anything works. You know what I mean? Like, oh, God, wouldn't that ignorance be bliss? I wish I sometimes had no thoughts in my head at any time.
Knowledge.
Is he will say something that he'll be like, well, I would do this, but I'm going to not because X. So it sounds like he actually had the power to do that in the first place, right? Like him making these random claims about how he's going to outlaw this or delete this branch or deport this person, but I'm actually going to stay my hand, you're welcome. When in reality, he never had the ability to do that in the first place, or he was told by somebody, hey, like, you quite literally can't do this and this would be bad. You can't do it. It's the exact equivalent of a guy who's 35 who says would have gone pro if it weren't for my torn ACL.
Oh my God.
Or like, oh, I would have gone pro, but I decided I wanted a life in finance. And you look at him like this, like, well, you couldn't have gone pro.
He's basically a Real Housewife too. He's a dizzy bitch.
He's messy as hell. He's a messy bitch. He loves stirring the pot, right? He loves just pitting people against each other. And his insults are really bizarre, right? Like, really bizarre and out there. If only he didn't decide to pursue like fascist dictatorship, he really could have ate down on Bravo, I fear.
Reb, I just want to give an idea. So Real Housewives of New York, this reboot is not great, okay? We're missing some oomph. What if Donald Trump returns to his native New York and we find a way, maybe he starts dating Countess Luann and she comes back on? I think he could have revitalized that show.
I mean, I wish I could say yes, I would be so down for it. Like 15 years ago, I would have been like, yes, 100%, right? This would have aged down.
I just want to get him out of the Oval.
You know what reality show I would like to see him in? Lock Up. Behind the scenes, right? Like, that's I think we are at the point where Bravo is out of his future and A&E is really his, right? Is really going to be his bread and butter. Like, I want to see what's going on with that for.
We're going to have you back on as more chaos ensues over the
Meghan
next
Markle's
4
trademark
years.
case, right?
Oh my God.
Honestly, God, if we have time to talk about it for like 10 minutes, like
Yes,
I totally
please.
would love.
No, we
Because
can.
We're respecting your time.
As someone who has been a trademark attorney, a United States, like I have done trademark cases, I've done trademark applications for big companies, for small companies, I've done patent litigation, trademark litigation, right? Like big ass companies suing my company for trademark infringement, or we're renewing something, or we have someone challenging our renewal. When I tell you, as just a personal opinion, IP, intellectual property litigation, that shit is not as fucking dramatic as they're making it fucking seem. What the headlines are saying, which makes me angry, is, oh, Meghan Markle's, the USPTO, the US Patent Trademark Organization, rejected Meghan Markle's trademark application for American Riviera Orchard. They rejected it. She, had to scramble to ask for more time. She had to tweak it. And it's like the most dramatic fucking roundup. And I'm like, okay, first of all, the USPTO has not rejected her applications in the regular sense. All they've done is say, hey, we're not going to move forward with the attempted registration until you, or like her lawyers, make certain amendments with the attempted registration and to the application and like pay the necessary fees. When I tell you, the way that works, way you file and the way that like the USPTO like responds is the most like generic, like it's like a sample document that is sent. Hello, this is the USPTO. There's an issue with your application. You need to, it's not like a literal, there's no judge's opinion in it, right? There's no like flair. There's no like commentary. It is literally the most automated ass service. It's the quite literal, it's the equivalent of going to the fucking DMV. Do you know what I mean? Going online.
That's the thing though. It's if you can position Meghan Markle as someone who is always screwing up, always lying, always getting into trouble, then you can take these
always
benign
reaching
processes.
a little too far.
For
the
example,
audacity
R12
of it.
Foundation had an issue where something happened where they were, I forget what it was, but they were marked as
delinquent
behind
on
or something. It was
their
just they
annual
hadn't
reports or
processed,
something. Yeah.
Paperwork.
Which it's like this automated thing. It doesn't mean that her attorneys are negligent or there's malpractice or like Meghan herself is trying to be duplicitous. In none of the grounds cited in the USPTO's, it's called an office action, like capital O, capital A. I've gotten those letters before on behalf of my clients, right? It's just normal stuff. None of those grounds are fatal to her attempt to register the marks. And they can all be resolved fairly easily. None of the claims, right, or none of the grounds that the USPTO is saying, hey, like, we cannot accept it at this time. Please fix these things. They're not substantive, meaning like none of those issues require
it's not qualitative.
Yes, exactly. None of them require arguments in front of like a trademark examiner, for example. All of them are like, hey, you forgot to hit the space bar after you hit enter. It's those types of issues that happen all the time. And also, so okay, that's first.
So is ARO not dead then, is what you're saying?
No, not necessarily, because
okay,
it's just helpful to understand that federal registration, trademark registration, is accomplished by identifying the specific classes of goods or services for which your mark will be used. We call these international classes, and each one encompasses certain types of goods and services. If an applicant's trademark, so an applicant meaning Meghan Markle, her attorney, on behalf of her trademark, she's applying, saying, hey, I would like to register this trademark. If it's going to be used on, say, cars and dishwashers, they will want to identify at least 2 international classes on their application, Class 12 vehicles and Class 11 sanitary apparatuses. There are all of these different classes. They're all different numbers. It's a big bank, and you select which one does mine fall under. So Meghan Markle's application, most of these issues are non-substantive. Like if you select the wrong class, there are clerical errors, etc. For instance, the examiner said that she needs to basically power up her identification of goods because some of the terms used are too broad and may involve goods that belong to multiple different international classes. This is a simple fix, okay? The only substantive issue that may come into play is because basically she may want to argue partial refusal for being primarily geographically descriptive.
That's what I've heard.
Yes. So basically, the American Riviera Orchard brand is apparently going to offer a wide variety of goods and services, like 14 different international classes. And one of those is food items related to jam.
And that makes sense then, because Meghan said in her video, I didn't put these two together. She said
Yeah.
it hemmed her in. It literally did then, if they're saying the trademark could only be based on geographic location with the name ARO.
Well, right. Well, with respect to ARO, right, the reason why the examiner is going to say, hey, like this might be an issue is only if the examiner says, hey, like the American Riviera is actually a location.
A thing, right.
And so the word orchard is commonly understood to be a place where you might find dried fruit. So American Riviera Orchard isn't distinct to Markle's business. And any fruit peddler from Santa Barbara
could be an American,
ought to be able to identify themselves as someone who's selling from American Riviera Orchard.
Makes so much sense.
Like, doesn't
it's
make
all
sense?
about jam.
It's not Markle related issues. It's the same way as someone wanted to name their company, like, right, the Los Angeles Orchard. If there are orchards that are literally Los Angeles orchards, then there may be issues, right, with respect to like, okay, well, that shouldn't mean that like every orchard in LA can't say that their orchard is Los Angeles.
Have you seen the small Majorcan
the new
town
one, As Ever,
with the crest of it all? What leg do they have to stand on in terms of a logo looking too close to a coat of arms in a small town in Majorca, which it kind of doesn't look like it?
That's like a completely separate, oh yeah, okay, instead of just your trademark application for what you're doing, now it's like, okay, like what does that shit look like? Anyone, including a little town in Majorca and anyone with like a little business that's small, but they got their trademark, can challenge a trademarks application. That is also super boring and generic. It's literally like a little like form you fill out and you're like, hi, we want to challenge you. Like Disney, for example, all these big companies have on retainer all these trademark attorneys and these basically automated things where they get every Monday, hey, these are the new applications that were filed. And they go, are any of them looking like Disney's? Oh, this one kind of does. Do we want to challenge it? Sure. Okay. Click, challenge.
How do you determine if it's too similar?
This is like going so far down the legal analysis line of complicated, complex trademark stuff. It's not a cut and dry, right, system of like, yes, it's similar. Oh, okay, we're out. They consider not only the similarity of the logo or the shape or the thing that you're trying to trademark, they also take into account the likelihood of confusion. So so for example, if you wanted to sell, and I'm just making this up because I'm not 100% sure like what exactly the crest would be related to totally. If you were just selling jams, but there was someone who was selling, I don't know, feet pics.
Just feet. They're selling feet, organs.
Foot cream?
They're selling organs illegally on the black market. Okay, so let's say foot cream. Okay, someone's selling foot cream in bumfuck wherever. All right, that has nothing to do with jam, not edible, nothing to do with that type of good. That, yes, won't necessarily mean that for sure they can have kind of a very similar type of crest, but it plays into the analysis of, okay, if consumers know damn well that these two things are not the same, then we might be able to allow, right, the other trademark to happen. That's why, like McDonald's, for example, they don't have a monopoly or an oligarch on the word McDonald. Like there can be other businesses that are like the McDonald, like moisturizing
There's
company.
a man that has a farm. He has a farm and he has a whole ass song.
Exactly. Yeah. So you see how like it depends on the market. It depends on exactly what type of goods this crest is being used for. It could very well be that, right, it means that, hey, you can't use that crest or something, right? Because the examiner, the trademark examiner is like, hey, you know, like likelihood of confusion, you can't use it. You just change it, right? Like you just go, oh, okay, never mind, and change the fucking crest. Or you do. It's not like they're like, you can never now apply for a crest. People get their shit struck down all the time or challenged all the time, and then they have to redo. Not because they fucked up, but because think about how many trademarks there are out there, right? In order to actively keep your trademark, you have to be on the horn and be challenging other people who are similar. And it is so not dramatic. It is so like, hey, you can't do this trademark, sorry. And they're like, okay, here's another one. Okay, perfect. And the headlines are like, stupid Megan I'm like, can we be fucking trademark? Yeah. I'm going to be honest, like, I didn't like it. I thought it was so boring. I was bored as fuck doing trademark stuff. It's boring.
I mean, it's just a great way for people to signal they have never done anything interesting in their life if they think this is a big deal and like that Meghan is such a screw up. So they're telling on themselves.
Markle, they're like, she asked for an extension. Can you believe it? I go, if I had $1 for every time
partnership with Netflix, are you kidding me?
I'm like, every time I ask for an extension, whether it be a partnership or a trademark application as an attorney on behalf of someone else, I'd be a billionaire by now. That is not weird. People are so annoying.
If you can make the mundane seem nefarious to people who are not going to look into it any further, and it confirms their preconceived notions of this person, then they're just going to go. They're going to go with it. They're going to
Exactly.
run with it. And suddenly everyone's a trademark expert on Twitter.
Suddenly.
Exactly. If people, right, who are not just like fans of Meghan Markle, whatever, but who are just like, I don't know how to, maybe they are right. I don't know enough about trademark stuff. Maybe they are right that it is weird that she's doing all this trademark stuff. Now you have the tools and information baseline to say that's bullshit and this is the most normal shit ever. Be for real.
Doesn't sell papers, though. That was
Not legal advice.
Yep.
Not legal advice. Oh
Not
my
legal
gosh.
advice.
Yeah, no, the Meghan stuff is
Bonkers.
wild. So I think just in terms of, obviously, democracy is on our minds, small d democracy. And one of the things that we try to do on here is just talk about what's going on in media. And because of the influx of insanity that's happening every hour, it's a new thing. It gives
Literally.
you whiplash. There's no real way to describe the cluster that is our federal government at the moment. But are there any stories or legal cases in particular that you're keeping your eye on? You're like, these are the ones that are really keeping me up at night.
I mean, every new executive order is at, hundreds at this point, which isn't necessarily an outlier with respect to presidents, right? Like they sign executive orders, especially in the beginning. It's not necessarily because they believe every executive order is going to stay in place. That's what the judges are for, okay? The courts are for. But they do it for kind of that political leverage and that political kind of posturing of saying, look, I'm doing what I said, I was going to try to do. But unfortunately for a lot of people in this country, every new one is feels like a Mad Libs, right? Of like just random horrible words that this is why I'm citing it. This sounds perfect. Obviously, a lot of the more extreme ones, him intending to send a bunch of immigrants, genuinely immigrants, because if you know anything about the law, there is no such thing as illegal, kind of like being an illegal immigrant, like that status doesn't actually exist. It's actually a civil violation. It's not a criminal violation in the context of like, immigration court type of stuff. It's not literally something that would get you thrown in prison. But of course, right, everyone in Trump's camp
That's not sexy.
Yeah,
Reb.
he doesn't think that doesn't sound great, right? Him signing executive orders to send, 30,000 people to Guantanamo, which already, I mean, I did an entire podcast episode on why Guantanamo itself was horrific. We weren't housing essentially terrorists there. We were housing like regular people who were sold to the US there from the Middle East and able to kind of keep them in this legal black hole on this island. It was initially built for 780 people. So like 30,000, like where already the numbers, if you want to just talk numbers, like there's just no way to do it. And also his executive orders banning transgender people from the military as if we don't have enough fucking problems going on. In that case, I think, of course, right, all of these other executive orders with relation to women's reproductive health and there being two genders, like the price of eggs is still high. I mean, not like
it's higher, I would
Social
say.
Security is being cut, Medicaid's being cut, Medicare is being cut, all these federal workers are being fired. Nothing really great coming out of it. So of course it's difficult as an attorney to really I'm like, what case are you keeping an eye on? I'm like, everything that comes up, I just read it when I can. Right? That's the point. Exactly.
Flood the zone.
Exactly. Flood the zone. So I will say that one case that's progressing, and when I say case, I mean that in order to challenge an executive order, when Trump is making these executive orders, which he can sign, even if they are by their words unconstitutional, even if he doesn't have the power to do them, right? Exercise that power. The way that the checks and balances are supposed to work, when we go back to like our civics courses in 8th grade, when we're learning about the three branches of government, the way that those balances are the checks are checked is that someone will file a lawsuit challenging the executive order or challenging the exercise of power, saying, yeah, these are the legal, constitutional, or otherwise reasons why this executive order is invalid and should be struck down. And a court should say, no, you can't do this. And so there are hundreds of these ongoing lawsuits happening every day right now, but also more and more are added every day. That's what the ACLU, for example, was
just going to bring that
for.
up.
They've been here and they're not going anywhere. There are so many, not just the ACLU, so many nonprofit legal organizations that were built exactly for this scenario. They were built to be the people who are like, we have this, right? We're not waiting around for regular citizens to pull up. Lawyers are the last line of defense. Absolutely. But also the first people on the ground and the last one off, literally. So one of these lawsuits, the way they work is, people who are impacted or, will be impacted by this executive order are put together and they file a lawsuit seeking to stop the executive order. And during the disposition of a lawsuit like that, right, when you like the substantive arguments are made and these legal claims, and it might take a long time, they request something called a preliminary injunction to be put in place until the final disposition of the lawsuit happens. So until a judge finally decides on the efficacy of the executive order. This preliminary injunction in these cases means, hey, we want for a judge to say you cannot enforce this executive order until we figure this shit out, right? Until we can see if you can even do this yet. There's a lot of legalese involved, but in order to secure a preliminary injunction, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win the case. On the plaintiff side, it means that, oh, you have enough to say that it's more likely than not that your claims look good, right? It's looking good. So we will grant this preliminary injunction and, see how this plays out. And so what's happening right now is the executive order Trump signed banning transgender people from the military is just so fucking out there numbers wise, right? Because right now in the United States, there are 1.3 million active service members. Less than 1% of our military is transgender. So that means around what basically studies are guessing is around 6,000, okay, confirmed. But of course, there are people who don't self-report for obvious reasons. So the high number we think is maybe 15,000. So let's just assume it's 15,000, okay? Every single one of those people have gone through every physical and mental examination and test. They have absolutely passed the normal guardrails that are in place for individuals who want to be in the military. There are, of course, a bunch of people or conditions or statuses that aren't allowed into the military for reasons, right? For example, certain people with certain eye conditions, ear conditions.
Yep.
Exactly. Certain people who have diabetes that can't really be managed very well and they require insulin every single day. They may not be able to enlist, or often they let them enlist, but they're just non-deployable, right? I mean, people who are actually in the military, no matter how red they vote, I kid you not, are like, yeah, this is the dumbest fucking executive order ever, because none of this has any bearing on whether they can do the damn job. The judge in this case, I love, she had a quote that basically asked one of, the Trump attorneys, right? People are calling them Trump attorneys. They're the Department of Justice attorneys that Trump appointed, right? So like the attorneys that just sold out, in my opinion. Personal opinion, they sold the fuck out. And they're not great. They're not good attorneys, which is even better for me because it's like my Super Bowl, right? I'm popping popcorn and listening to the worst fucking, I'm like, you didn't even prep for this fucking hearing, bitch. Come on, like at least try. These legal arguments are asked. But anyways, the judge looked at them and said, well, you have to agree that when you're in a foxhole, right, with somebody, as in the trenches with somebody, you're not caring about what their gender identity is, are you? And the attorney was basically forced into a corner to say, that would not be my primary concern. No. Duh. Duh. So basically what's happening is there was a hearing last week on this preliminary injunction that there were 6 service members who filed, I believe 6 to 8, I believe. I'm not sure if I have that number right, but 6 service members who are presently transgender, who are actively in the military. And mind you too, those who are trans, who are in the military, the number is so fucking small in our population in America, but also in the military itself, that if you look at them, most of them are like highly decorated. They're fantastic at their job. They absolutely ate the fuck down when it comes to being just incredible parts of our military. Genuinely, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, no, like they're not, this isn't a DEI quote unquote hire that you guys are alleging.
Don't get me started.
We have a hard enough time just recruiting people into the military. It's like, why are you even trying to get rid of people?
And in the last 10 years, they have been desperate for rising numbers. For that reason, they have basically initiated all of these new waivers, they call them, for certain medical conditions that what used to be things that wouldn't allow you to enlist. They're like, it's fine now. We don't care. Please, please. They're begging on their knees for people to enlist.
But if you've had top surgery,
right, and then you want to now kick people out, like, okay, but regardless, mind you, less than 2% of those who are enlisted, so those who are serving, so let's say the high number is 15,000, but it's probably less, okay, it's probably less. Less than 2% of those individuals ever seek actual gender reassignment surgery. The rest of them, like, you don't have to. As a trans person, existing as a trans person, it does not mean that you have to seek hormone treatment or get gender reassignment surgery, but even if they did, on the same vein, I'm like, hey, the government, okay, as in like VA, right? Like military benefits. If people are arguing, well, we don't want the military to have to pay for that shit. The military pays for breast augmentation. If you report that would impact your self-esteem, the military pays billion with a B dollars per year for Viagra.
I knew this was coming.
This is not about cost, because these surgeries are not expensive when you compare it to the rest, right, of the medical conditions. That this is my thing. We absolutely can pay for it, right? I'm like, listen, we can spend $87 million on a jet that we're gonna dump into the ocean because someone hit the wrong button. And also, if we're talking about cost, that's not what it's about at all, it is less expensive to invest in someone who's already trained, who's already here, who's already fantastic, and then decide when they are already in the military, has already proven themselves, who are already passing all of these constant evaluations and reevaluations for mental, right, depression, suicide ideations. Like, people are saying, well, trans people commit suicide at a higher rate. Well, first of all, trans people commit suicide at a higher rate if those trans people are those who don't have support, either physically or societally. But then overall, right, they do have a high rate of suicide. So do men. So do veterans. Military service members in general have a high rate of suicide. That is the number one cause of death right now, is suicide or accidental discharge of a weapon. Accident. But number one is suicide. So really, right, that doesn't have anything to do with it, because all of them have to pass these mental evals anyway. So like, they are having to, be checked for this stuff.
You're making too much sense.
I know,
honestly.
right?
Not
But
making
basically,
sense.
I'm like, it literally is the same thing in any business. They'll tell you, does it cost more to keep someone and invest in someone, train someone, whatever, or just fire them and hire a new person? It's
Right.
triple the cost to find someone else to replace them. So just pay for their top surgery, these couple thousand people, maybe couple hundred, right? Like, it doesn't fucking matter.
But that's the thing, though, is that it's not so much about cost savings as it is optics, because even
culture war
Doge,
bullshit.
20-year-olds breaking the government, and their numbers are off. They really haven't saved anything significant. In fact, they've just broken more. And that's really, it's culture wars too. Trans people have been made the boogeyman because there are not many of them, and because you can write out these little wins. Do you think, though, with the Trump administration, on some level, do they know that these executive orders will be challenged? Are they hoping things make it up the courts, like the Dobbs decision, to the Supreme Court, and that will be kind of the final test of if the courts are going to hold against this assault on democracy?
So the executive orders, they are aware that all of them are going to be challenged. Like, that's why, they have the DOJ lawyers who are pulling up to court, like in that hearing for the trans ban. I mean, the essential outcome of this initial preliminary injunction hearing was the DOJ was arguing like they were at a fucking press conference, and the judge was genuinely applying like the proper law for equal protection challenges and saying, you're like basically completely dog walking this attorney. Not for political reasons. She was really like, get your shit together. Like, you're wrong. And, and so in reality, of course, they know that these are going to be challenged. And, the way that it would go all the way up to the Supreme Court, I mean, yeah, in theory, like, any of these challenges could go all the way up. The amount of time that it takes for that to happen, for like example, like the ban on transgender people in the military, if this judge grants this preliminary injunction, doesn't mean that the case is over, doesn't mean that the case has been won by either side. It means that you cannot, and this has happened in other cases as well. This has happened with respect to USAID, like USAID. Trump immediately
The
stopping
federal funds freeze.
Yes, like if you basically, there are so many ongoing lawsuits where like they're all different judges too, all different federal judges all over the country. One of them said, okay, no, they did grant the injunction. Another one granted another injunction. Another one denied it, but said more time. If that, the DOJ wanted to continuously appeal all of these, rulings, etc., they would have to appeal, and then the circuit court would have to say yes or say no. And then from the circuit court, they would have to then, from there, if it's federal court, appeal to the Supreme Court is the next bar. But it takes so long for those things to happen. And for you to be able to even appeal something like that, because a preliminary injunction doesn't mean the case is over. And you typically can't appeal unless your case is, right, you have the final disposition, or people will be appealing with every, little order that a judge made. There are so many moving parts, whether that like are legal, that respect all of this stuff. If they are genuinely banking on all of these going to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court ruling in their favor every single time, then like, what a strategy. Like, what a strategy that takes a really long time and it is bizarre. But also, you can kind of tell that some of these executive orders, because Trump is seeing that all of these judges are, regardless of who appointed them, we got Bush appointees, We got Reagan appointees. We have Obama appointees. We have anyone appointees, because it used to be in this country where judges would be appointed, right, for their, right, okay, yeah, they're slightly red leaning or blue leaning or whatever. No matter what, because it's a life term on the federal bench, they always end up going more to the middle anyway with their decisions, because the law is inherently, it's like,
here in Pennsylvania, where I live, the judges on the ballot can't even like campaign. You just can only say you're recommended by the Bar Association. It's not supposed to be political.
Right. Those are state court judges. Yes, exactly. And so with these, Trump, he issued an executive order after he's seeing that all of these federal judges from either side of the political spectrum are being like, yeah, they're granting these preliminary injunctions because the birthright citizenship one, for example, the executive order that said,
oh, that was crazy.
Birthright citizenship, I'm going to take out of the Constitution, like it isn't plainly there, right there. All of the press were like, can you believe a Reagan appointee judge was basically looked at this attorney and said, how can you sit here as a member of the bar and even argue this genuinely? Like, be fucking for real, because there's no political, this is a yes or no question. And hey, like, we can't amend the Constitution off of a strike of a pen, babes. That requires what? I think it's like 3/4,
two-thirds majority, yeah.
2/3 majority of all the states. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? So Trump, after that, has been like, okay, he issued an executive order saying that the judicial branch doesn't have the power to decide what the executive branch is doing and whether it's
which
legal
also
or not.
is in the Constitution, right?
Which is like Marbury versus Madison in 1804 or 1803 said, like the Supreme Court literally said in the 18 whatever said, yeah, so it is actually the absolute and really exciting, amazing power for the judicial branch to say emphatically what the law means. That is our job. We tell you what the law means.
People versed in the law.
It kind of sounds like from what you're telling. I mean, again, there's a lot of bad. But there's also, some signs of the injunctions, and there's humor as well. There's humor because otherwise we would just cry, and that's no fun.
Right.
Might as well make it funny. But what, as a lawyer, what are you seeing that gives you like even just like a little morsel, a little 100-calorie hack of hope?
That, honest to God, being in this field can be devastating as an attorney. There are a lot of lawyers and a lot of judges who are and will be on the wrong side of history, not because I agree with them or disagree with them politically, but because, precedent should stand and the way that we've applied the law should stand and the way that this country runs in terms of, democracy and the foundations and the principles of that should stand. And the way that we fight for it, absolutely, as attorneys, in the same vein, makes me so proud to be in this field, because there are lawyers on the ground, right, filing these lawsuits and doing excellent lawyering. I mean, incredible work. And also all of the nonprofit organizations who are nonprofit legal organizations. For example, the Acacia Center for Justice, they basically provide pro bono legal services to unaccompanied minor children who are in immigration court, because immigration court is considered a civil proceeding. And so they do not have the constitutional right to an attorney. And so you have 5, 6, 7-year-olds having to sit up in a courtroom. It's genuinely sickening and horrifying to see with translators. As a very adult prosecutor and an adult judge is basically trying to get them to speak for themselves. And they're sitting there like, I don't know, you're right. Like they're 5 and 6 and 7, no matter what political affiliation you have, no matter what you believe about asylum and immigration in this country, that is and mind you, that is the legal way that they have to go through this. That is the legal process that they have to take. So in this country, if we really are the land of the free, we absolutely should be providing people with attorneys the same way that we do in a criminal court. If you're charged with a crime, right? If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you, period. That's a right. And no matter if you're a citizen or not, that should be a right. And so the Acacia Center for Justice helps. They're a nonprofit organization. They help provide these pro bono attorneys for these children. And I did an entire episode on unaccompanied minors in court on my podcast. I had 2 of these attorneys come on. They have incredible stories and talk about just how all of these individuals, especially children, absolutely do have the right to asylum under our laws. Like under our laws, they qualify and they should have legal representation, someone fighting for them. And one of Trump's executive orders ultimately cut a lot of their funding, actually last week. And so it basically means a stop work order. So meaning like even if they have hearings the next day or in a week for children that they can't miss, suddenly, right, the government's saying you need to stop and you can't move. Well, of course, ethically, my ethical obligation as an attorney is, well, I'm pulling up, right? Like I can't, like ethically, I'm not going to not show up to this hearing. And all of their posts and everything, if you guys want to follow them on social media, what makes me so proud and happy and gives me, such a light in my life is to see all of these people swarming to donate, because it's not going into some fund. It's absolutely going directly to legal services, directly to filing fees, directly to ensure these attorneys can show up to court that day and argue their cases and just have to focus on the law and not about the funding and all of that. And no matter what executive order is happening, all of those nonprofits, just like Acacia, but just like so many others that work for reproductive health rights, for immigration rights, for trans rights, for LGBT plus rights, all of them are going to still be here and still be boots on the ground in court, making his life a living fucking hell when it comes to wanting to circumvent the Constitution. And it doesn't matter what he says, the judicial branch will still be there doing what it needs to do. And that's what makes me feel better about life, is that, honest to God, like, there's going to be someone in an ill-fitting suit in court eating the fuck out of this motion, chewing the fuck out of these DOJ attorneys. I posted a video the other day, literally reading a transcript from that hearing. Completely objectively, like, if you want to go, apolitical or whatever, it is funny as fuck. Like, it's funny as fuck because this attorney is just like, I don't have an answer for you. The judge is saying, no, you do have an answer. You just don't want to say it. Like, literally just no holds barred. It's exactly how judges normally are. They don't take this shit. They're like, you're not in a press conference, babe. Like, we're talking about the law here. What part of that amendment says this?
About the law here. I love that. And what we'll do is we'll make sure to link to the organizations that you've brought up so people can share and donate, and also obviously to where people can find you on TikTok. When is the book coming out?
In November. We're thinking a November 11th release date. I'm not allowed to share the cover yet. There's all these rules related to it. But yeah, it'll be great, and it'll be funny, right? Like, I'm wanting to give people some humor, some love, some light, and also you'll learn something about your rights, the baseline, what I think everyone should know,
could be better.
And what should have been taught in school, right?
I love that. And so let's end on a fun, light note. You were talking about ill-fitting suits, which is a tragedy, just like last season Prada shoes, as Elle Woods learned. So, Amanda, as our fashionista, what do you want to ask Reb?
Excuse me?
You are, Amanda. Are you kidding? You always have the cutest stuff.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I was curious. I don't go to many courtrooms, but what are the girls wearing? If you're giving closing arguments, like, what is there an it item? Is there a look? Is there a trend that your friends are picking up on?
As female attorneys and as attorneys in general, we have a very small number of colors, right, that we can really wear. Like, it's very much like in court, they tell you, like, all right, black, gray, navy, maybe a dark brown if you want to go crazy, plain color undershirt. Like, this is if you're a trial lawyer, right, going to the court all the time. Right. So, of course, right, you don't want, because you want your words to be louder than your outfit, right? You want your words to sink in. You want your lawyering to sink in. And if your outfit is loud as fuck, even if it looks great, it's going to detract.
Someone's got to tell Elle Woods this.
Right, I know.
Or the real life Attorney Martinez who is giving Elle Woods.
No, see, but that's the thing, is that's the default. You can absolutely be an attorney and wear amazing, incredible pink tailored suits in court. Without a doubt. Like, that's no tea, no shade. It's just the default for it, right? And I don't want to tell everyone, hey, like, everyone should be doing that. Like, there's definitely, certain situations where you might want to tone it down just for normal reasons, not misogynistic reasons, men and women. But I will say, regardless of what color I'm wearing in court, I feel like I'm like the dark Elle Woods. Like, I'm white, right? Duh. But like, I feel like I would be repping like an all black situation always. I love an all black moment. I feel like
Elle Woods.
I feel like an assassin. I want to feel like an attorney assassin in court with like, I always am wearing a 3-inch heel, like, regardless. What I do love that is not just coming back, it's been coming back for a while, but I love a fucking shoulder pad, man. I love the 80s, like the 80s suits, shoulder pads, like even attorney movies that you see from that time period. But the girls were rocking these big, huge, beautiful, lovely 80s shoulder pads with big hair. I just love that.
The belt.
Yes, and the belt. And now, like, a lot of my more recent suits that I've gotten and acquired and have even worn, in court, it's not a huge shoulder pad, but I just think it looks sharp and fresh and gives you personality, even if the rest of you is a little bit muted. I love a shoulder pad fucking moment. And then I wear it out.
I'm creating a silhouette, okay? I'm giving you what you're asking for. I love that. You can still look stylish and be an assassin in court. Do you always have the cat eye? Is the cat eye always
killer
going
cat
strong?
eye? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's typically, right? Like, normally, like, if I'm
do you
feeling
have a video how you do that?
Yeah, it's on my TikTok profile. There's a playlist on the top of my page that says eyeliner tutorial, like eyeliner toot. Because people ask for it. And it's really, I know people always say, it's like, it's so easy. It really is easy.
Once you do it so many times, it's muscle memory.
Right, exactly. And,
Meredith's like, what?
I didn't go to that.
it's
I
super
missed
fair.
that day in girls' school.
Super fair. And I didn't, it's funny, I didn't start doing it until halfway through practice, like maybe a year into being on TikTok. It was like, because I got like a free sample liquid eyeliner with like a Sephora purchase. And I thought, oh, let me try
Changed
this.
your
And I
life.
tried it. And here we fucking are, right? Here we
Iconic.
are.
It's your
But,
staple.
But yeah, like anything that makes you feel like you're put together, not necessarily like feel good, because like I could have no makeup on and still slay any of these bitches. And you know what I mean? Like, it's like, come on now.
Yeah, you're
It's not
ferocious.
the makeup.
I would never.
But like, it's just the little things that we do to make you feel like you're complete. Like you finally put down your shield over your head. You're like, all right, now we run into battle, girlies. Like, all right, put it on. We're ready to go.
It's probably what Kate Middleton does with her pantsuits. It's like her work persona, honestly.
And I'm going to be honest, they're tailored to a fucking T.
They're McQueen usually. Yeah.
Fuck, man. But, that's why, too, having the money to have, like, a consistent tailor, because even if you're buying designer shit, even if you have money, I mean, the guy on Twitter who, like,
the
basically talks
menswear
about
guy?
the menswear guy on Twitter, his account is just a testimony to money doesn't buy good style, and also money doesn't buy a good fit. You can buy McQueen, Gucci, Dior, whatever, but your body is not going to fit into a normal size for anyone, right? Like, I'm a different size in every brand. It depends on the day. It depends on, what they're going for. To have the money to start getting your stuff tailored is where you've made it, in my opinion, right?
Invest in tailoring.
Like, I'm like,
Yes.
tailor, you could honestly not even pay that much money to have tailored an H&M fucking suit.
You
right?
can tailor
Like,
anything.
You tailor
And you
anything.
look amazing.
You look amazing. And then,
So many good tips today. I feel a little better, and I'm ready to go try some cat eyeliner. So I'm feeling very brave. Thank you so much for joining us. This was wonderful.
You're so great.
We will have everything in the show notes, every place that you can find Reb all over the internets, and of course where you can find us and sign up for our Patreon and leave a little Apple review. We do love those, especially when they're nice. And other than that, we will see you next time. Thank you, Reb.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.